Hello, it's Walter again. Today we're going to basically work on themes. So themes are basically the colors that make up your web page. So for instance, mine's got a background of a purple color that basically goes to a lighter color. Then within the content area, I have a thin blue line outlining that. So, and then the gray top bar at the very top. So basically, let's say your site's been designed, your website's been designed, and you kind of want to play around with the colors yourself. Maybe change it around a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and log in. Once you're logged in, go to your login name in the very top right and go to settings. Now on the left hand side, under social site, you're going to go to themes. Now the theme in use is always checked because it's active. But what you don't want to do is go in there and basically play around with that particular theme. So if you ever want to restore your website back to what it was, you always have that skin. So what I always do is I clone my skin that is basically actively being used. So I'm going to go ahead and clone that. So now I have a clone of the original theme. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to actually work on the one that is active, and I always have my backup clone. If I ever wanted to, I could just go into that one and just click the active button and it would change around to that particular theme again. So very easy to go back to the same skin you had before as long as it's being cloned. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into this particular theme here and we are going to make changes. Now, because this was a custom theme, we had to put CSS at the bottom of the page. So this is all basically cascade styling sheets, which allows the website to know what basically the theme, color, font, everything is supposed to be. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to remove all of this because I basically want to work right from the themes. Because if you do have CSS in your existing theme, that means that there's another hierarchy on the server which is telling your web page basically what to do. So for us to be able to change the colors and play with our themes, we got to get rid of the CSS or the mandate that the theme is basically giving the web page. But as soon as that's gone, all right, so I removed all my CSS now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save that and show you what it looks without that CSS anymore. So now if I go back into my social site, you'll see that that is my web page now. And as you can see, it's off-centered now. It's basically shoved to one side because the CSS was basically making it go to center. But we're not going to worry about the centering part of that now. All I want to show you is the basic theme on how this all works. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our settings again, and we're going to go into themes. So our main color, as you can see, is this light blue color. So I want my main color to be, let's say, an orange, burnt orange color. So I'm going to go ahead and save that so I can show you what actually that main color is. So this is the main color. So if I go to your website and you look at it, it basically shows as your main tab colors become the main color, and those two lines around the content area and the divider of your navigation keys are what is represented as the main color, and of course the rollover of the very top right. So not that much of the main color actually shows through on the actual theme when you're using it. But let's go in, and now text displayed over main color. So if we had any text displaying over this, this would be the color that we would want to use. So over orange, I think the black is fine. Main content background color. So right now, when you see this checkerboard, that means it's transparent, and the transparency is the square with the red X in it. So meaning that whatever is on it will basically be transparent, and the color behind it will be able to come through. So I'm going to basically remove that because I want to make my content area background white. So I'm going to click OK. Now main content text color. Normally the best for content background and content text color is basically a white background with black text over top. But because we're going to play around, I'm going to make my text here red. So it's going to white background with red text. Main tab background color. So these are basically the background tabs. So let's go ahead and change these to an ugly green, just so you see exactly what's changing where. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now you'll see my tab colors have now changed to the ugly green. But now if I go into an actual page, you'll see that I've got a white background for my content and red text over top. Now the title on the page uses the main color. So the main color, of course, is that orange whenever we roll over anything. And the little lines that basically surround the content area, and the white horizontal line that basically divides the navigation tabs from the actual content area itself. Alright, so basically pretty good on what you can, the big drastic changes there. So let's go back into settings to themes one more time. And here, okay, so we basically stopped off at the main tab's background color, main tab's text color. So this is basically the text in those actual tabs. So right now we've got basically black. So I'm going to basically change this to, let's say, white. And I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to save this. And I'm saving it just so you can see exactly what's happening. Okay, so now all my tab text colors changed over to white. So we're going to go back into it. Now, page content border width. Now, this is the border width line. This little thin orange line here, that's your border width. So let's say I'm going to make it 10 just to show you exactly where that line is. So if I do that, you're going to see now this is the big thick line now that is basically the outline of your content area. Now, the font, this is basically the font that you can choose for your actual web page. So we could go with fantasy, for instance, and then the header footer border width. This is the line that separates the header from the content area and the footer from the content area. So if we basically do 15, let's go ahead and save that. You're going to notice now that your main line at the top here is very thick, as well as the footer line down below there is very thick. And now if we go to an actual page, you'll be able to see the actual lines are much thicker than they were before. And of course, this is just to show you, because normally you would never want to have the lines that thick. Usually it's a nice little line, if anything. If maybe you might not even want a line in there. So for mine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically blow my content line out of here to 0, because I don't want one at all. I just want to make the transition right across. So now my page content is white. Page background color, the light blue. This is what surrounds the actual content area. So for this one, I'm just going to make it a, let's do it something so you can actually see what I am talking about. So I'm going to go with a darker brown just so you can see exactly what that is. So if I say that okay, you're going to see now that my content area is still white, but the surrounding area now is that brown color that I just chose. All right, so basically everything really straightforward in the themes. You can basically, play around with those till your heart's content. Playing around with different shades, themes, colors, whatnot. So I'm going to change this to a proper width, which would be 3. Now my background color, of course, that's horrible. So I'm going to change mine to white. Now the a page background image. If you wanted, you could actually choose an background image to go in there. So for instance, I've got this concrete theme that I use a lot on some different web pages, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. So if I'm saving this now, you're going to see that the background now is an actual image which looks like concrete, rather than having the other, which was that horrible green we had going. But the one thing you do want to be very careful on is when you use a background image, your database pages are very hard to read. So especially like your text on here, because we're using a gray text, basically you can barely see it within your actual database pages. So be very aware of that. That's why We don't really like to use background images in that because it does distort your ability to read it properly. So for instance, in that, we would want to basically change the page text color to something that you would be able to read with that gray background. So I'm going to basically change it to like an orange, so you might be able to see it a little better in the lounge. So if I go back to the lounge now, you're going to see that it's better, but it's not quite very good. And that's a problem with using background images. If you do decide to use a background image, make sure it's very subtle, because it works the best with just actual colors, solid colors. So I'm going to go ahead and blow my image out of that because it's just way too hard on the eyes. So I'm going to dump that out. My background color is going to be straight white now. And my page text color basically does not have to be that horrible orange, but let's check it out and see what it looks like. So here we go back into the lounge. Now you'll see that much better to read. You can see everything now. And then if I go to the other pages, you'll see that my content now has no content divider around it. So that line is gone because I'm basically set it to 0. And all the pages are basically white all the way across. Alright, so now the only other real places you need to change is basically your footer and your top header. So if you look at that at the very section header, we are looking for the page header background color. So that is the page background header color here. So if we change this to something other, you know, I'm going to do it into a red just so you can see the major difference. So if I save this out, you're going to see that the top bar now will become red. So it's very, very easy to play around with your themes, but like I said, always keep your backup cloned so you always can refer back to it. So what I want to do though is I want to match my footer to the same color, because right now my footer is still the black or the dark gray, the way the top bar was. So page footer background color, there it is. Now if I wanted to match it exactly, you can see that there's a number here, F0000. So I can do the same to my footer, so the colors are identical to each other, the top and the bottom. So then I can just go in there and FF1234, and you can see that it's the same red color now. So if I save that, you'll see that the top part of my web page is the same as my bottom part of my web page. So if I go to any page, my top header and my footer will be same colors. Let's see, what other important color do we have there that makes a big difference on your design? I mean, the rollovers, it could be, you can make that interesting. So the main tab colors, which are your main tab colors, can be basically the rollover, but the rollover always is your main color. So let's say from a green, let's say a good rollover for that would be maybe something in a darker green. But just to basically show you what I'm doing here, so you can see that now that rollover is the darker green, but then of course the darker green is the main color, so that affects your H1 tags, which is the title page, and the hyperlinks, which is also the main color. So just be aware that there are a couple colors that basically are linked together when you choose the main color. That's a rollover color as well as the actual H1 color or the title tag colors. But my best suggestion is to get in there, clone your existing theme, and go ahead and create a new one and start playing around with it just to have a look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to revert back to my original. So I'm just going to go back to the Office clone I created. I'm going to click on active. I'm going to save that, and my page will automatically be restored to what it was before I even started. So make sure you just clone your existing theme, then go into the original and start playing around with it, and have a look, have some fun, and see what you can do in there. Thank you.